Hi everyone, I am Annika Duthry and welcome to World Deconstructed, where we will break down complex international issues for busy teenagers like you. This is our first episode, and we are kicking it off by talking about Finland joining NATO. I know. Many of you may be wondering what NATO is, and the rest of you are wondering, when was the last time I saw Finland in the news? But hear me out. We're going to break it down and figure out what Finland finally did that was worthy to make the news. So Finland finally joined NATO on April 4th of this year. But before that, let's get into what even is NATO and why is it so important. NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's a political and military alliance originally founded on April 4th, 1949 by 12 countries, including the US, UK, France, and Canada. Did you notice? NATO was founded on the same day that Finland joined. But it joined on the 74th anniversary. Could they not have made it one more year to make the number even? But I'm getting off topic. Let's go back to what NATO's purposes are, including preventing the spread of communism from the Soviet Union, stopping European countries from trying to outdo each other's militaries, encouraging closer relations between European countries, and hosting summits at Ibiza and Monaco. So going deeper into the first purpose, NATO was an extremely important part of U.S. strategy to prevent the spread of communism from the Soviet Union. How so? Well, after World War II, many European nations were left struggling due to the loss of human life and the damage to their infrastructure that was caused by the war. Through NATO, U.S. offered a helping hand to the struggling European countries in rebuilding their nations from the damages of World War II and having them not depend on communist countries for such aid in their hour of desperation. Additionally, having rebuilt their nations under the help from capitalist countries left deep, lasting ties of capitalist economic and trade structures. Just imagine, you saved your buddy from the school bully, got a few knocks in the process, and your buddy wants you to pay for his hospital bills. And you do it. That, my friends, is the start of a beautiful friendship. And now, going deeper into purpose 2, NATO has also prevented European countries from trying to outdo each other in military power through Article 5. Article 5 is an extremely important part of NATO and basically states that an attack against one country in NATO is an attack against everyone in the alliance. This means that if the Soviet Union had attacked a small nation such as Belgium is like, who are you calling small nation? Have you heard of David versus Goliath? Well, Belgium, you are a small nation, but you're in NATO, which means if you were attacked, everyone else in NATO, like the US, the UK, and France, would be required to help you fight back. Now, Belgium didn't need a big military because it knew that other countries with bigger militaries would protect it, allowing it to focus its time on chocolate and waffles. Belgium, just make it rain chocolate and waffles. Chocolates and waffles. But this Article 5 was extremely important when it came to nuclear weapons. Since Belgium knew the US would protect it with their nuclear weapons if needed, it did not need to make its own nukes. This kept many countries from creating their own nuclear weapons because they knew the US would protect them, keeping Europe and the world much safer, and also not having us wear a hazmat suit every time we go outside. And going into the last purpose, NATO has encouraged closer relations between European countries by hosting joint military exercises, essentially giant sleepovers with missiles and submarines. And NATO has also promoted cooperation between the countries when it came to security and defense. Now that we've talked a little bit about NATO, let's go into how it's expanded over the years. Soon after NATO was created, Greece and Turkey went, me too, just like every little sibling that tries to tag along on our nights out. But it did further prevent the spread of communism in Europe. And then later, more countries, such as West Germany and Spain, joined as well in order to defend themselves against the threat of the Soviet Union. Then even later, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the unified Germany inherited Germany's NATO membership. If you remarry your divorced ex, you can still use their Costco card when you go shopping at Costco. And then even later, in 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed, NATO's first reason for existence, preventing the spread of communism, was less important. However, the alliance continued strong with its other two goals, even adding more democratic countries that were not able to join before, such as Poland and Hungary. And now, more of Eastern Europe has joined NATO, with over half of Europe now part of the alliance. Talk about ditching your bestie just because there's a cooler kid in school. That's cold, Europe. That's cold. But NATO has also expanded its role on the world stage. It sent in peacekeepers in several conflicts, such as a civil war in Yugoslavia, an Eastern European country, in order to prevent ethnic cleansing, and it intervened militarily in Libya in order to protect its citizens from its own government's violent crackdowns. Today, NATO membership has grown from its original 12 to 31 countries, almost triple of where it started. Nothing grows that fast except memes about Bernie Sanders' mittens. But if so much of Europe was in NATO, why wasn't Finland a member before? On one hand, Finland embodied democratic values in a form of government that closely identified with other NATO countries. In fact, Finland had a close partnership with NATO and would still participate in NATO-led missions and spread NATO's democratic values. However, on the other hand, due to a long border, Finland had extensive economic and trade dependencies on the Soviet Union, and now Russia. But more importantly, Russia had made it very clear that they're against Finland joining NATO and would increase their military near the border if Finland were to join. Well, somebody feels a little jealous. But this meant that Finland had to make sure not to antagonize Russia, given its superior military might. In order to walk this fine line, Finland adopted a policy of military non-alignment, basically meaning that they're not interested in joining NATO, but they're not against NATO either. This left Finland under a precarious balance between the two sides. And this is why, folks, you should never date two people at the same time. But if Finland had struck this balance, why were they joining now? When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, they upset the fine balance Finland had struck between the two sides. The invasion drastically increased Finland's fear of an unjustified Russian invasion, increasing their fear of Russia's military might, regardless of whether or not they were part of NATO. This upset balance pushed Finland further away from Russia and closer to NATO, pushing them so far as to request membership in the alliance in order to protect themselves against Russian aggression. So, what impact does that have now? Finland joining NATO dramatically changes the balance of power in Europe. Now, NATO has access to Finland's large and well-trained military, strong cybersecurity protections, and strategic position due to its long border with Russia. The expansion of NATO also shows how Russia's invasion of Ukraine backfired on them. When Russia first began its invasion, it cited the eastern expansion of NATO as one of the key reasons why. However, this invasion ended up pushing Finland to join NATO, furthering their expansion eastward and more than doubling the border between NATO and Russia. Beyond that, Russia has already responded to NATO's expansion by stating that they will be forced to take countermeasures and send forces to the Finnish border if NATO weaponry enters Finland. These countermeasures appear to have already begun, with pro-Russia hacker group No Name 057 making Finland's parliament website unusable, overloading their servers. So when Belgium joined NATO, we got a rain of chocolate and waffles. Not exactly sure what we get for Finland joining though. Still trying to work that one off. But there you have it, what Finland joining NATO is all about and why it matters. If you want to learn more about this topic, check out these links to NATO and several news articles further exploring the topic, all in the description below. Are there any other topics or news articles you guys want to discuss and have broken down? Any suggestions or recommendations on how we can make this show better for you, share your comments down below, and we'll get right on it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, share this episode with your friends. And if you have ever wondered what the connection is between salamanders and elections, don't forget to check out our next episode when it's out. See you next time!